This is a video explaining chat commands and other related helpful tips. One of the most asked questions that people don't seem to know is how to copy and paste URLs or any chat really from their in-game window. So here we have a sample URL that I've sent myself. I'd like to copy over to my browser. As you can see, you can't exactly copy or click the chat in-game through normal means, else there would be no point to this guide. First thing to notice is the two buttons right next to the send button on your chat bar. You've probably never really looked at them before. The first one of them looks like a little scroll, and the second one looks like a small window. Click on the small window button, which blows up your chat to full screen with a beige background like this. And then once in this chat mode, you can then click and highlight your desired URL. And to copy the chat, simply hit Ctrl and C on your keyboard or V to your URL bar in your browser, or paste it anywhere really. Now let's talk about some other chat tips that exist. First, the scroll button that we kind of mentioned earlier. There are three types in the scroll mode. The first one is the regular mode, in which you see you have a scroll bar, but the chat only extends to half the screen. When you click on the scroll button, it lets you blow up your chat so that you can see it full screen with all the chat channel colors, as well as the chat extending all the way up to the top of your window. So unlike in the window mode that we were talking about before, you'll be able to see everything that goes on in your game screen, and it's easier to tell which chat is which. Obviously, you won't be able to copy your chat in this mode. The third mode of scroll is the light mode, where you don't actually get a scroll bar, and the chat will disappear from the screen after a certain amount of time after it's sent. Do note that this does not clear it from your records, as you'll still be able to scroll up and see it later in other modes. If you're using a lot of different commands at the same time, chat commands, you don't really want to keep retyping them. You can use the up and down arrow keys on your keyboard to use the most recently used chat commands in reverse order. For example, I'm talking to both Sal and Hib at the same time, but I don't really want to keep retyping his name, so I use the up arrow twice to select his chat command instead. Another cool trick when talking to people is that you've probably noticed that the slash emote won't really send in a tell situation. However, if you typed out the slash tell command instead, the slash emote will work as a standalone tell. Another thing people wonder about is how to talk while in a puzzle. It's actually very simple. While puzzling, the chat bar is grayed out, but you can hit the escape key on your keyboard to be able to chat. This is also useful for checking the duty report in between segments to see how much time there is left in it. Environments such as in sea monster hunts and blockades. This tip also works while sword fighting, though I wouldn't really recommend it until you know for sure that the fray is won. So how do you clear your chat when you think it gets too cluttered? Here are some common chat commands that you should know about. The first one being /clear, which clears the screen. As you can see in your window mode, it's all gone from the game window, but still in your chat logs, which I'll talk about later. Another useful command to know is /info, which lets you know the current game time, although I've moved the clock to the blog, so I personally hardly use it anymore. If you mouse over the clock, you'll also be able to see the date, by the way. People also often ask how to take screenshots. It's really very simple with /print. It should be in your options chat shortcut F12. I'll talk more about the hotkeys later, but the default for /print is F12, so you don't really need to do anything, just press F12. /who is a super useful command, as it not only tells you the number of people online, the on-duty OM, but when you're on a ship it also tells you how many pirates are currently on board, who they are, as well as listing which scene of the ship they're in. Right now it says 1 because it's only me on board, but if I were to bring on someone else, you can see that it now says 2. Now that you know this, while waiting for Warframe to load, you don't really need to keep asking how many people there are. You can just use the /w command to check for yourself. The islands are only listed if the islands are in the same archipelago that you're currently on and have online players on them. On the ship, the greeters section will only list the greeters on the same ship as you, while on land, all the greeters in the same archipelago as you will show. If you'd like to know how many greeneries and greeters there currently are, you can always use the command /gwho. Kinda sad that there are more greeters than greenies online. These numbers are for the entire ocean. Starter island just means the current island that the newly created pirate will be dropped on. Other /w commands include /see who, where you can see who's currently online in your own crew. Or you can type /see who's other crew's name to see who's online in their crew. Likewise, /fwho works much in the same way. A /fwho alone will give you everyone that is currently online in your own flag, and then /fwho another flag's name, and you'll be able to see everyone that's online in their flag. All crews and members are listed in alphabetical order. The most well-known of the /w commands is probably /vesselwho. Right now I'm doing a /vwho on the ship that I'm on, and it shows that it belongs to my crew, is in port at Admiral Island with 1 out of a possible 159 pirates on board. So you don't really need to even check the Wikipedia to see how many pirates the ship can hold at a maximum. You can just do that. You can also use the notice board to see /vesselwho commands. This is very useful to see what the status of ships are, how close they are to filling, etc. For example, I now want to see who's on the crew's ship that is currently out at sea. And very simple that way. It should be noted that for regular vessels, there may be a lot of ships with the same name. In that case, ships that have pirates on them will always sort first. Now with all these commands, you're fully equipped to go stalk others on YPP. Another very stalkery thing to do is to keep chat logs. Chat logs are disabled by default, and a lot of people don't seem to be aware that it is possible to keep them. Just go to Yi, Options, Chat tab. Let me just briefly explain YPP's chat filters. You can get reported or even banned for chat filter evading. That is to say, deliberately misspelling filtered words to get around the chat filters, to cause massive disruption or griefing other players. Restricted words are highlighted in yellow when you type them, and disallowed words in red. Just keep your chat filters on priority and you'll be fine for the most part. Now for the chat logs. You can obviously choose to disable them, but it is recommended that you do enable. If nothing else, when you have an issue, you'd have logs to back up your complaint or problem or claim, and it'd be easier for you to plead your case. They also only take up a few KBs in size per log. As the game is pretty ancient, it has a very simple interface for selecting where you want to save them. Each chat log saves in a file that I've so far only been able to open with Notepad. Each pirate will have their own chat log file, so I recommend creating a folder called chat logs to save them all in, as I've done here. Chat shortcuts are another thing that people don't really seem to know about. First off, you obviously need to enable them. You can set them to anything you want. Many don't understand what that little tick box at the end does. It's an auto-send tick. When you've got it ticked, the message will automatically send when the hotkey is pressed, like so. Let's say you don't want to chat Buchit, then having it unticked just means that you'll have to manually press send before the message is sent. This is quite useful. It is recommended for you to untick the chat box, as you can get reported for spamming the same message too frequently at the end or wherever. Sometimes there's a bug where you press your hotkeys and they just refuse to work. Usually opening up the chat shortcuts panel, clicking around, and then closing it should do the trick. Since we're talking about things in the game options panel, we might as well take a few moments to gloss over the rest of the panels. On the general panel, you can change your screen size, even make it full screen, fonts, toggle special effects on and off. This usually has to do with seeing the ice during winter time. Every year people never quit asking where they can go to turn icebergs off. This panel is also where you can change where your screenshots are saved, much in the same way how you'd configure your chat logs. The sound tab is obviously where you're able to configure your sounds. It is worth noting that every time you use a new pirate, you'd have to reconfigure the sounds as the settings are stored client-side. Alerts and game alerts are the only two types of sounds I have on, as I personally find the rest really useless and annoying. But try and see what works out for you. Pertaining to that, mute lists are also stored client-side, which means that every time you wipe your computer or use a new one, you'll lose your list, which is also quite annoying, to be honest. Under the Puzzles tab, you can actually remap your controls for all available puzzles. Here I changed the spool button on patching to spacebar, as I've heard that it works much better and allows you to be much faster.